what's the tool to enforce that? Like for instance, you hear like, oh, they were tried in absentia, right? So The Hague can make a judgment or do a case against the person who's been suspected or what is the legal word to brought to
Charged.
trial uh, for crimes, but they're not present because they can't be extradited from Russia, so they have a trial in absentia, right?
Right.
So is that what does that mean, and how does that play out in the scheme of the real world pressure, or is it just
Okay.
symbolic? Is that something that's just for
Uh, well, let's put it this way. A key precedent for us is Nuremberg. At the end of World War II, the Allies, convened a trial in Nuremberg where they uh, prosecuted the Nazi German leaders for war crimes. And it was a precedent that can be followed today. There could be a new Nuremberg, whether in Geneva or elsewhere, where Russian leaders could be brought to account for all of these war crimes. I think there's 130,000 recorded war crimes that the young lady that won the Nobel Prize, the Ukrainian Matvichuk, I think is her name, the lawyer from Ukraine that has documented the war crimes that Russia's committed in Ukraine. So uh, now there's a discussion about how this might happen if Ukraine were able to win the war, how these leaders could be prosecuted in a new Nuremberg-style prosecution. And Nuremberg itself was extraordinary in the sense that one of the warring parties at Nuremberg and one of the parties that participated was the Soviet Union. I mean, we had a Soviet prosecutor in Nuremberg. So, in the eyes of many people, a party that initiated World War II along with Nazi Germany through the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, uh, one of the initiators of World War II was prosecuted, but the other initiator wasn't, and was actually trying the first initiator. They had a judge, a Soviet judge, um, hearing the evidence, and a prosecutor that was involved in trying to prosecute the Nazi leaders. So how does that work? But if you read some of the history of Nuremberg, um, the American and the Western jurists that were at Nuremberg wanted to be sure that the defendants, the accused, had an opportunity to put their case forward fairly and for them to be heard. They gave them the capacity, despite its flaws, to enable the defendants to present their case and their defenses fairly. The main defense that was presented was, I followed orders. Hitler gave the order and I followed orders. It's not my fault. I just followed orders. And, that's been argued in other cases since in the United States and Vietnam and stuff like that. I just followed orders. And of course, that's what the Russians will say. I followed orders. It wasn't my fault. It was Putin's fault. And the jurists in Nuremberg had to play around with this and establish that no, it's not that you're following orders. You have a duty to ensure that you don't commit war crimes. It's as a military leader or as a political leader, you are under an obligation under international law not to commit war crimes and not to abide by orders that are clearly designated or designed to commit war crimes. So these military soldiers or military officers that are undertaking all these slaughters in Ukraine and the torture and the rapes and everything, they, according to the Nuremberg proceedings and international law generally, including the Geneva Conventions, a time could come where these people will be called to account for everything that's been done. But there's a victory needed. Ukraine has to win
That's
in
what I
order
was going
for
to
that
say.
to happen.
Germany lost the war, and so they were that sort of pressure and reckoning was able to happen inside Germany, but it's never going to happen inside Russia if the realities on the ground are accepted and their new territories that they occupy of Ukraine, that becomes the contact line, that's frozen.